All right, welcome back, folks. This one is a doozy. The Los Angeles Dodgers have fired Shohei Ohtani's interpreter and close friend, Ippei Mizuhara. It follows reports of his alleged illegal gambling and theft from the Japanese baseball star. The Los Angeles Times and ESPN reported on Mizuhara's alleged ties with an illegal bookmaker and reported millions of dollars in debt. Questions emerged after officials found at least $4.5 million in wire transfers sent from Ohtani's bank account to a bookmaking operation. Ohtani's spokesman originally told ESPN he was covering Mizuhara's gambling debts. Mizuhara told the outlet he didn't know his gambling was illegal and Ohtani had zero involvement in the betting. Sources told ESPN Mizuhara's debts were tied to a Southern California operation that is under federal investigation. Here to talk more with us about this is Lou Shapiro. He's a certified criminal law specialist as well as a state and federal criminal law attorney in Los Angeles. Lou, good to have you. Federal investigators and a U.S. Attorney's Office are looking into this case involving a Southern California bookmaking operation. How serious is this?
Well, it depends how far this goes, in a sense that it could be just as simple as Ohtani is a victim of crime like anybody else. Or it could be the opposite, where Ohtani was involved in gambling and his interpreter is just the fall guy, in which case that would put Ohtani's career in jeopardy and his liberty in jeopardy, because we're talking about $5 million in a federal case and the United States sentencing federal guidelines come into play. It's not a pretty picture.
This has sparked a lot of rumors, a lot of conversation online. But just for clarity, what exactly is illegal about this situation here? I mean, it doesn't look great, but what crimes could be associated with what Ohtani's interpreter is accused of doing here?
So there's two real issues that are at play. One is the rules of Major League Baseball, which is separate and apart from any criminal matter. The rules of Major League Baseball is a player cannot bet on baseball games. And then there's a question of, well, do other sports also come into play on that? And a lot of analysts are saying that all sports are problematic when you're a baseball player. So even if it's the interpreter that's doing the betting and Ohtani is covering for those debts, it's not a good look for Ohtani. And we have to see if the MLB is going to look into this further or just look the other way. Then separate from that is the criminal side of it, where California, it is illegal to bet on sports or any activity in the state of California unless there are certain, we'll call them incorporated areas. But other than that, it can't be done. And Boyer, who is the individual that's sort of in the center of this pending federal investigation, the wires went from Ohtani's account to him. So that's how Ohtani came into play here. So if there was some type of illegal gambling going on in California by Ohtani, we see Yasiel Puig, who's also a former Dodger, was charged in that. That could present criminal culpability or problems for Ohtani.
Let's get to the thornier question here. What Ohtani knew. MLB players can't bet on baseball. This is something we were just talking about. And the former interpreter said Ohtani doesn't bet anyway. But the money was to cover the interpreter's gambling debts, or so we believe. Assuming that that is the case, could Ohtani share the responsibility here? And what will investigators be looking for?
So the MLB, if they decide to take this up and look at some type of punitive action to Ohtani, it's a little gray at this point, because Ohtani's saying, I didn't bet directly on anything. It was my interpreter who's betting, and I'm just covering for his debts. But then the question becomes, is covering debts, gambling debts for someone else, the functional equivalent of gambling? And I think it's a very close call there. And that's probably why right after the interpreter made his statement and said, Ohtani was just covering my bets, then it came up after, no, that's not the case. Ohtani's camp said, that's a lie. Our client is actually a victim of theft. There was no covering bets. So it was like that backpedaling, which was very surprising because it seemed like all this was sort of being orchestrated together at first. But then as the news started being delivered, the story was changing. And that's what's causing a lot of suspicion to both the public and higher ups.
Lou, with the last 45 seconds we have left, is there a larger conversation to be had here about the way that betting has been incorporated into sports right now? I mean, where does the conversation go from here, considering what we know so far about the situation with one of the biggest players in the game?
I think two things. One is because they say, the law is always catching up to technology, because it's so easy to bet anywhere nationally, it's becoming a little more challenging to decide, well, where was this bet taking place? If it was bet in another state, but you live in California, is that a problem? Probably not. So then it's like, well, so what if you're betting with someone in California? The whole thing just gets a little bit like diluted. But the bigger question, I think, takeaway from this is you got to look out for the appearance of impropriety. And that's what I think is bothering people here. What was Otani thinking? It's just not a good look.
A lot to think about. Criminal law specialist Lou Shapiro. Lou, thank you as always for being with us. We appreciate your expertise.
You got it, Christian. See you next time.